Thank you for tuning in to Hangin with Mr. Francis podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Francis, and this is episode 19, Digital Currency Wallet. Before I begin, I just want to say thank you again for joining me on this podcast. And this episode is strictly just my opinion, and I can't stress this enough, as I will mention at the end of the podcast, is to do your own research. I can only relay what I can, but hopefully this will help any individual that comes across this to understand a little bit more about these digital currency wallets. So let's start off by saying, or asking the question, I should say, what is a digital currency wallet? So a digital currency wallet is basically a cryptocurrency wallet, which can be a device, physical medium, program, or a service which stores the public and or private keys for cryptocurrency transactions. In addition to this basic function of storing the keys, a cryptocurrency wallet more often also offers the functionality of encrypting and or signing information. Now there's public keys and there's private keys. So I'll start by going over a little bit about what a private key is. So what a private key is, very simple, is like a password, a string of letters and numbers that allows you to access and manage your cryptocurrency funds. Pretty simple, right? Might not be for some people, so let's carry on. What is a public key? Well, a public key allows you to receive cryptocurrency transactions. It's a cryptographic code that's paired to a private key. While anyone can send transactions to the public key, you need the private key to quote unquote unlock them and prove that you are the owner of the cryptocurrency received in the transaction. So I hope that gives a little bit of just of the difference between a public key and a private key. Now I'm going to get into the little bit of more meat of things. So for those who know me, I've always stressed that hardware wallets are something people should have. An example of a hardware wallet is a Ledger Nano. If you want to look that up, the company's called Ledger. There's other companies out there that have hardware wallets now, but Ledger's been around, I believe, the longest, if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong. And then there's also exchanges and mobile wallets. Now, I categorize exchanges and mobile wallets under the same category, and the reason being is that they're almost one and the same because they do share the same type of functionality where you can exchange and so forth. Now, hardware wallets are a little different, even though there's software that comes with it that allows you to exchange cryptocurrencies and so forth. So we'll start with the exchanges and mobile wallets. So what those are basically a service provided by that particular company, which allows you to store your cryptocurrency and or NFT that is minted to the blockchain safely. Now, in my opinion, looking at these services, it does remind me of storing your money in the bank. Though you have access to it like you do with the traditional bank, you don't necessarily have the full ownership of the situation as you would compare to the hardware wallet which I will get into shortly. I know with like cryptocurrency, people are still skeptic. There's still a large margin of people that are not in this space as of yet, but I say these are things that if you are listening, you should really take a deep dive into understanding it a little bit more before you go into the whole investment aspect of it, because a lot of people are like, they want to get this get rich quick type of thing. And I have come across individuals that, they look at the investment part of the money part of it, but you really got to understand the technology behind it, because you can technically lose your money if you're not careful when you are trading within the space. Now with the hardware wallet, you're in somewhat of a full control. Now I say full control, almost, but those services still provided by a company that makes the hardware wallet itself. You are fully responsible now for holding those private keys that I was mentioning to you earlier to keep your digital money safe. So in turn, if you end up losing access to your private keys, which allows you to gain access to this cryptocurrency or NFT, then you are, how we say it, shit out of luck. The hardware wallet, in a sense, it gives you, so just like when you put your money in the bank, right? When your money's in the bank, you basically have your bank card, right? And your bank card acts as a public and private key. It's something that you have access to, and you keep having access to it in regards to, your money being in the bank. So let's say the bank is the service provider, and then you have your bank card. So that holds your public key and private key, which allows you to go to a store and make purchase. So they have like that public key, so you can do that. But then the PIN, as I would say, acts as your private key. So the public key is what allows you to transact, and the private keys, your PIN, allows you to gain access so you can make that transaction, is essentially, to explain it in simple form. Now, overall, I see the future of money moving in this direction, even though Bitcoin has brought the sense of decentralization, which puts the full responsibility back into the hands of the consumer like myself or yourself, compared to our age-old centralized banking system. I think eventually the blockchain will become a dual centralized and decentralized network. Some cryptocurrencies will remain in that realm of decentralization, which will have the centralization where it will come as a sort of a on-ramp in regards to gaining access to all these decentralized cryptocurrencies. Now, I'm not an expert of these things, or where these things are going, or where they will go and so forth, like I just said. But I understand enough to give my own opinion on what direction it could potentially go. Now, I could be right or could be wrong. I just follow the pattern of what has happened over the last couple of years. I believe, though, that governments aren't going to want to have no control over its citizens. Obviously, they still want to have control. So that's where regulations will come in eventually, and they are starting to ramp up because Bitcoin is a threat to the current system in a sense, and other cryptocurrencies. So gaining access over that, because you've heard them talk about CBDC, which is central bank digital currencies. And that's where I think that's going to be the on-ramp to have access to these other cryptocurrencies, because in order for you to gain access to get Bitcoin, you either have to go to a Bitcoin ATM or doing it through an exchange or a mobile wallet. But then you also have to use your the banking system to then send your money to then make this purchase, and or vice versa and so forth. Given recent events, though, such as the Freedom Convoy, and seeing how they've had people's bank accounts frozen, even crypto assets, it really showed that having a hardware wallet compared to having your cryptocurrency on an exchange or a mobile wallet aren't always the safest bet in my eyes. So unless you're not doing any illegal activity, it also gives you that scarcity that this can also happen to you no matter what. Even if you're not doing anything illegal, seeing that if you may not agree with something, your assets can become frozen, just like how it is with the current banking system, right? But the reason why this was able to happen is if these individuals who had their stuff frozen, they may have had it on an exchange or even a mobile wallet. Again, which is why I said they're essentially like a centralized banking system that's giving you access to these cryptocurrency funds, but they also hold your public and private key information, and you don't really have full control. So at this point, as I always tell anyone, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, is that if anyone comes to me and asks me about cryptocurrency or NFTs or anything of that nature, even though I have my own understanding of the whole situation, I always preach the choir of saying, do your own research. Because really and truly, it's the only thing that protects you from making those simple mistakes that may cause you to lose not only your information, but your money overall. This, again, I can't stress this enough, was strictly my opinion, and that you do risk having your money in exchanges and or mobile wallets when they're actually not in your full control. So this is just my consideration. You don't have to listen, but you can do your own research. I do strongly suggest storing your access to your cryptocurrency and your NFT on a mobile wallet, because you then have access, basically, of you having that mobile wallet, you have access to not only the public key that's provided where people send you funds back into the wallet, but you hold the private keys where you have access to the funds and you're the only person that have it because you physically bought that wallet that's strictly bounded to you, right? And unless you give out the string, I believe it gives out either a string of 12 or 24 words, you basically have access strictly to yourself, and you don't share this information with anybody else. You don't give it to anybody else. As long as you keep it to yourself, you don't take pictures of it, you store it in a safe place, you write the words down, and like I said, just store it in a safe place, you're good. These are the words that you need to use to have access to the hardware wallet, so that way you have total control over the cryptocurrency where it is stored on the blockchain itself. And that's why I stress it a lot of times, where I'm like, it's exchanges and mobile wallets are great because a lot of the exchanges, you have more access to different cryptocurrencies and you can trade and day trade like you do with stocks and stuff like that nature. But it doesn't necessarily give you, well, for me, it doesn't give me that comfort that everything is safe, because just like that situation that happened back in, I think it was 2018, of that exchange owner that basically owned all the keys, or had all the keys because he ran an exchange. He had access to everything. No one else knew the private key because he kept it to himself. And then he ended up passing away and everyone's money went to shit. I won't mention the name of the company itself, but if you do enough research, you Google it or whatever it may be, you can find it, no doubt. It was a Canadian company, so I'll give you that. It sucks that happened, because I almost ended up using that exchange, but I didn't end up using it or storing anything on it. So that was a great benefit. It was suggested to me by someone, but thankfully I didn't use it at all. So that's a perfect example that when you don't own your keys and something drastic happens, you could just lose everything, and just like that. So once again, this is another episode of Hangin with Mr. Francis, episode 19. I'm your host, Mr. Francis, and this episode again was Digital Currency Wallet. Thank you for tuning in, and I know that there's a lot of information when it comes to cryptocurrency and digital wallets of that nature, and it's a new tech to a lot of people. It hasn't really reached its full potential on everybody, but we are heading in a digital direction, no doubt. You see it every day. Now, a lot of people will say, well, we're already digital. Well, yeah, money is digital on your computer screen and when it goes into your bank. We still have cash, but there's going to come a time when everything will be digital and cash will be obsolete. Now, I know cash at this point is still king, but until that time comes, you can still use your cash, but hey, it's only a matter of time. So it's better to be prepared than not being prepared at all. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode.